Right, so hey guys, my name is Adam Sitson, and for those of you who don't know, I was diagnosed with testicular cancer on the 31st of January of this year, just before coronavirus. I put up a poll on my Instagram, asking people to ask me questions about the whole experience. Just kind of thought it might be a good kind of perspective for people that don't know or have never really talked to someone that's went through cancer. Yeah, I'll start with the first question. So RV and Afosa asked the same question. It was like, what was it like finding out, and how did it feel? How did I feel when I was initially diagnosed? So initially I was diagnosed, I almost fainted. I went white, and like the doctor said in almost one sentence was, you have testicular cancer, you will go through chemotherapy, and you will have to have your testicle removed. So that was a lot to take in almost one sentence. That was initial shock, but then once he said that it was curable, it was fine. Really, just like, let's get through it. Let's get through it. Because there was a lot of waiting around the initial week I was diagnosed. But once chemo started, I kind of just went through it. So RV asked, what would I have felt differently if it was another type of cancer? So yes, obviously, because testicular cancer, although any cancer is bad to get, it's one of the best ones to get, which I know doesn't really make sense, but there's only a few type of cancers that are curable. So that means that when you go through chemotherapy, when you have surgery, you can get rid of it, and there's not a high chance of it to return. Some of them are just treatable, where they can just stay, like, put off the cancer and like keep it at bay, which is not ideal, but it's at least better than other cancers or whatever. So Alex asked, did I find the lump by chance, and was it painful? So yes and no. So around this time last year, I was sitting in a lecture and I got a really sharp shooting pain in my kind of stomach, like kind of coming up from my groin. It only lasted like a second, never thought much about it, and then it happened again in October of last year. So that's when I kind of thought there's something not right here, and then that's when I felt a lump. I kind of said, let's get that checked out. And then the doctor also felt a lump. It wasn't just me imagining things. And then that's when the whole procedure started. So I had an echo, I had an ultrasound to see what was happening, and then it turned out that the lump was a cyst, which was never the problem, but they found a burnt out tumor, which was a sign that had spread. So it did spread into my stomach, but thankfully chemotherapy has reduced that tumor in my stomach right down, and they're happy to leave that there. So yeah, I did find it by chance, in a sense, that I kind of, after the sharp pain, I don't know if that's a usual symptom. Usually it is just a lump. Moya asked, what was the hardest part about the whole journey? Which is a good question. I think the hardest part was the needles during chemotherapy. I found out that I have a severe anxiety to needles, which was ironic in the sense that the nurses were saying, they ask you every day when you come in, how are you, how are you feeling, and that kind of stuff. And towards the end of it, I was kind of explaining that I was always fine during it. I never had any problems other than the needles. And the nurses were making a joke about me that if the only thing I'm suffering with is the needles, then I'm in a good place. I'm in a good place, basically. So Moya asked, what was the hardest part about the whole journey, or the journey so far? And I think it was definitely the needles during chemotherapy. I found out I have a severe anxiety to needles, which is what it is, basically. And the nurses were kind of laughing, saying, well, not in a bad way, but if the only problem I'm suffering with is needles, then I'm in a good place. Like if I have no diarrhea or constipation or that kind of stuff, then I'm good, basically. Nathan asked, what were the key signs that made me go to the doctor? So it was, like I said, the sharp pains and the lump, which are the usual signs. And you can kind of almost tell when something isn't right, and you kind of need like a professional opinion, like a doctor's opinion or a medical professional's opinion, and especially when the lump and those sharp pains, they're not normal. Well, at least I didn't think so, and I was right in a sense. So Nathan asked, have I gained anything from the whole experience, like be it appreciation, etc. Yeah, definitely. Kind of learn to appreciate the small things in life and don't like fight over small stuff in life, which is, I think, people kind of need to learn that. But and I think I've also learned how nice people can be. So in work, I had my manager, Aoife, and Tig organised like a whole night out in the local pub and to raise money for Irish Cancer Society. And we raised, and as well, we also set up a donation page online. I think overall we raised over $4,500, which is really good, super good. And that was all kind of because of me, in a sense. Like not due to me, like I didn't get that money, but it was going to go to people that needed the money more than me, that I don't need that money at all. So I'll go towards people that like the Irish Cancer Society raising events and that kind of thing. So I think that was really good. Tessie asked, how has it affected my sense of purpose in life? I just kind of want to make the most of it. I think being diagnosed with cancer kind of turns your whole world upside down. And everything is, everything's not very certain or anything. So I think definitely just kind of, make the most of life, I think, is the kind of best way to sum it up. Like I want to travel and I want to not be limited by the fact that I have been diagnosed with cancer. I don't want to be just at home like I am now with the coronavirus, but I just, not waste time in a sense. I think that's the best time, or best kind of way to sum it up. So Curtis asked, what was the most unexpected thing about the whole journey? I think it's like how nice the nurses were, and I think also how much easier chemotherapy was than I thought it was going to be. So initially they give you all the symptoms that you could get. So like most people lose their hair. I've lost my hair, which is fine. I don't really care about that. But they give you like, weight loss, loss of appetite, diarrhea, constipation, all these kind of symptoms, blood clots, all that kind of stuff. And the only thing I suffered from was my hair loss. And like I had a huge increase in appetite, which is a symptom as well. So I think that was the most unexpected thing. I kind of thought like when I was initially diagnosed, I'd become like a shell of a human, like with a bald head and like wouldn't eat anything. But in reality, it was actually kind of the opposite. So I just ate loads and I almost not put on weight, but I kind of maintained my weight, which was interesting enough. Luke asked, has it changed my perspective towards life? So yeah, basically, like I said, just appreciate the small things, definitely. Yeah, appreciate your friends and family, I think, and people who are there for you. Friends and family are kind of most important people throughout the whole journey, I suppose, because like you need support. Like I think if you were alone during the whole process, or if I was alone, it would make it a lot harder. Which is you want kind of people to kind of support you and kind of build you up, but like it's not a nice thing to go through, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy or anything. So Ahmed asked, and I think this was the best question of all, was 3 things that I learned about myself throughout the whole experience. And I think I really had to think about this one. But I kind of think, well, the first thing I kind of learned was that I have a severe anxiety to needles. So much so that I was prescribed anti-anxiety medication, which I never thought I'd have to be put onto Xanax in my life, which is kind of strange. But anyway, I think also that I'm fairly unfazed. I was fairly unfazed by it all, basically. The initial shock was terrible, but I think once I learned that it was curable, I was fine. I think that was the kind of say, all right, let's get this done and over with, basically. I think the third thing was I just kind of learned who was there for me, in a sense. Like learned who my friends were and who, like, that's not like a dig at anyone or anything, but like how like all my friends supported me and my family supported me, and I got texts off people that I hadn't talked to in a long time, just kind of saying like, I'm thinking of you, or wish you all the best. And I kind of think, ironically, it was a very nice thing for everyone to kind of text me and support me, which was really, really good. So yeah, I think that's a really good question. Darren asked, what did it feel like at the initial diagnosis? So yeah, obviously a huge shock. No one should or wants to be ever diagnosed with cancer. It's a terrible thing. But I think you just kind of take it day by day. Stay positive is huge. It's half the battle almost. And then last question, Tig asked, what was it like working during chemotherapy and finding out the whole seriousness of the coronavirus or COVID-19? I worked the first 2 weeks, or first 2 weeks of chemotherapy, which was when I still had my hair. I was still like getting used to it. So I went through 10 weeks of chemotherapy, and the first 2 weeks are fine. Like, you don't really feel an effect. You're a little bit tired, but so I went through 4 cycles. Once the second cycle hit, it was like hit me like a ton of bricks, basically. I think that's when I kind of was put on like not mandatory leave, but kind of I just left work, but I still have my job, basically. So yeah, and then finding out the whole seriousness of COVID-19 and coronavirus, or the coronavirus, whatever you want to call it, was worrying in the sense that because of chemotherapy, your immune system is down. So like simple things like a cold or like a sty or an infection are easily going to be picked up. So like the coronavirus, how deadly it was or is, it was worrying. So we were all the patients were told to stay at home, isolate as much as possible. Even they moved the oncology ward, which is where you get chemotherapy, they moved it outside the hospital to kind of protect the patients. So yeah, it was worrying, but not really that much, because I was sitting at home anyway. I was isolating anyway. Like, that's what you're kind of almost told to do anyway. So it wasn't a huge deal. So that's the last question. If you have any other questions or like anything you want to know, or have any video ideas or that kind of thing, just comment down below or send me a DM or text me or whatever. Yeah, thanks for watching. Hope this was kind of like interesting or useful for people that don't know about cancer or chemotherapy, that kind of stuff. And yeah, make sure, I suppose, like a YouTuber thing, like and subscribe, and yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching.